Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, traders. This is Bruce at Bookmap. Welcome to the Bookmap Platform Details webinar. And let's just get started here. Okay, risk disclaimer. Trading futures, equities, and digital currencies involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Now, what we'll do in this webinar is go through the Bookmap resources, the Bookmap website, where you can find Bookmap to download. There's a free version, how to subscribe, how to connect. Just briefly go through that, and then get to the Bookmap chart and start to define some of the elements on the chart, what you're looking at, and then how to read them. How to use them. And I'll do that kind of combined together as well. And please feel free to ask questions. That's what this webinar is all about. And we'll cover some of the basics of reading order flow that we, when you subscribe to Bookmap, you receive access to a 4-part educational course. All right, and they're each part, 4 parts. Each part is about an hour long. And then we cover that same information in the advanced order flow analysis webinars. Okay, and they're in the live market. They follow this webinar at 11 a.m. Eastern. And what we do is use a lot of the order flow techniques, very objectively reading Bookmap, and then start to anticipate future price movement based on our analysis of the order flow. So the main point here is when you subscribe to Bookmap, it comes with education, okay? And you can learn about it, but then you can also see it in the live market every day, all right? So that's the educational part of Bookmap, and that's what you get when you subscribe, okay? So let's jump over to the website, okay? And we're gonna scroll down a bit here. There's an intro video here. We'll scroll down a bit further. Just information about Bookmap here, some testimonials. Pause here for a second. There's Bookmap for equities. So this is not just for futures traders or digital currencies. And I'll talk about this more in just a second. Let's continue on down further. Connectivity. We'll stop here for a moment. What Bookmap is, we are a software trading platform that visualizes the order flow in a very unique way compared to other platforms. But we are a platform. We're not a data provider. Okay. Now you can see there's some other platforms listed here as well, like Ninja, TTX Trader Pro, and Interactive Brokers Traders Workstation. We connect via the API of these 3 different platforms. So you can go that route if you like, but we prefer it because the data doesn't go through an API. It will be untouched by any other program. So it's best just connect to Bookmap directly with the data feed or data provider. So you can use CQG, Rhythmic, Gain Capital, IQ Feed, Transact, and Dev Experts. Okay, now this Dev Experts is for NASDAQ Total View and now includes EdgeX as well. So let's scroll up a bit here. And then this is for that Bookmap for equities. Okay, in a partnership we have here with DX Feed. Okay, so you can read about that here. You can see that NASDAQ Total View and the CBOE EdgeX. Okay, CTA data is not actually offered at the moment, but it will be shortly. All right. Okay, so great data feed, full depth of market, very low latency, very, very fast. All right, so that's the way that you can connect Bookmap. Now, here's how you can subscribe to Bookmap. There's a few different packages available, and you can subscribe yearly for a 20% discount or monthly for the prices that you see here. Now, the different versions here, let's define what they are. Okay, you can see a couple versions for digital and a couple of versions for global. Okay, so the digital version here you can see is free. Is real time. You get access to free data for the GDAX exchange for 1 digital currency only. And the digital plus version, so what you get on top of that is, well, you get access to 20 different digital currencies at once. Okay, you can trade right from the Bookmap chart, okay, into the GDAX account or exchange. You can record and replay your data. You get the advanced education that I was talking about. And then you also get access or full support as well. Okay, the free version does not include any of that. The global version. So the global means it encompasses everything. So you'll still get access to digital currencies, and that exchange for the GDAX is free, or the connection to it. But this is the version you'll need to connect to the futures markets and the U.S. equities here. Okay, so again, we're a platform. We're not a data provider, so you will need to provide that data for futures and for equities. Okay, and of course you get the advanced education and full support. Now the Global Plus version is all inclusive. It, in addition to what Global offers, you get access to our cache of proprietary add-on indicators that are exclusively written for understanding specifics in the order flow. So for example, our large lot tracker here is starting to note larger players holding the majority of liquidity in the order book. Okay, our algo can detect that. There's some imbalance indicators as well. Iceberg tracker, again, looking for larger players that are using iceberg orders in the market. So we're identifying very specific order flow phenomena. Okay, there's a correlation tracker with different markets, and then you can also click and trade, one-click trading right from the Bookmap chart. Right, so those are the different versions. And let's jump over and show a few more different resources. We have a Twitter feed you can follow here at bookmap_pro. All sorts of new information, usually daily. It's been a bit that we have posted, but oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. This was 2 hours ago, as you can see. Okay. All right. Let's jump over here to our YouTube page. You can subscribe here and just go through some of the basics on the front page here. Some intro videos, just a playlist of a few different intro videos for those of you who are new. Features and components to understand all the different features in Bookmap. Okay, this is just some of the highlights. And then these order flow video snippets, I would encourage you to watch as many of these as possible. This is where you'll start to understand and read the order flow according to Bookmap. Okay, what is Bookmap showing you, how you can use it, and how it's going to give you an edge. Okay, because we visualize the information in a unique way. Now, that said, let's jump over to Bookmap and take a look and start to define some of the elements on the chart and what they visualize here and how to use it. So let's jump over to the S&P E-mini. Boy, we may even just take a look at crude, but we'll start here with the S&P E-mini. Some great stuff just right off the bat, as you can see here. Very, very big wall of liquidity up at this 2680 area. Okay, and we don't even test into it. Okay, so this is here's our 930 open. Move up into that area. Starts to fill in some of these areas, it looks like, and then we don't find any more buyers. We're right back down, and back down to where the open occurred, but we haven't made a lower low yet. Okay, so you can see right off the bat how important liquidity is. And for those of you who are new, let's start to define exactly what you're looking at here. So let me take off some of the indicators. We have a CVD, cumulative volume delta subpanel indicator here. I'm going to close that up. And then some of the other lines, this is a POC, a point of control indicator, and a VWAP indicator is this white line. I'm going to take those off. And so we're just going to look at 3 basic elements on the Bookmap chart here. Okay, very simple, very straightforward, objective data that you're looking at here. It looks like it's complex, it's really not. Okay, the first element on this Bookmap chart is showing historical best bid and offer. Okay, the second element on the chart is the transactions, these volume dots that you see here, the transactions that took place on that historical best bid and offer. And then the third element is the heat map, okay, this colored heat map here. All it is a recording of your DOM. We take the areas of liquidity in the dome, and we record it and then plot it on the chart historically. So now you can see that there was a lot of action up here, or a lot of interest sell side, a lot of liquidity up here. The traders were waiting to trade at these areas for a while, and they're still up here, in fact. I have full depth of market, so I know that these areas up here are still live. Okay, so to further define these and to define some of the advantages that you're getting here, I'll throw up a candlestick chart and I'll take off those three elements and we'll add them on one at a time here. Okay, so here's a very basic 5-minute candlestick chart, and we're all accustomed to this view. Okay, we've been looking at it for decades, most likely. Let's start to define some of the problems looking at this view. Well, the issue here is that we're looking at aggregated data. Okay, this is a open, high, low, and close of a 5-minute period. There's only 4 data points here, and that's it. Okay, we want to know what happened within that candlestick. We want to break it apart. We want to see very precise information. We want to understand if there's micro structural elements and how the volume traded within those elements. We have none of that data here whatsoever. It's it's very, very opaque view that we're looking at here, and it doesn't answer any of those questions about volume and microstructure, let alone the auction on the offer and then on the bid and the heat map. Okay, none of that data is here as well. So just very simply to combat or show the distinction between aggregated data and every single data point or price level is just to turn on here the historical best bid and offer, and that does the trick. Now we know how these candles traded and little structural elements within them. Okay, whereas that's hidden, it's disguised with the I can see it up here very, very precisely and plainly. We moved on up pretty quickly, 15 minutes or so, and then we based sideways here. Okay, look at this range. Okay, we have a trading range here. Okay, and we have microstructural ranges within ranges as well. Okay, so there's you can see there's a little one here, another one here. We broke this one and traded back here. Okay, but we found buyers and we moved right back up. Okay, and then we have another little range up here. Okay, and then that was broken. We have a retest to where we broke from here, and we were not able to trade back up into this range. Okay, so this is one of those setups that we look at in the order flow. We want to understand this shift in this order flow in these areas, and I can define this very clearly by turning on the volume. Okay, and we're going to get the insight that we're looking for. Okay, well, here's the move to the upside, and look at the green dots here, pulling the market up. They're lifting the offer. Okay, very typical. This is how you see breakouts occur with a lot of volume, a lot of buy volume. And there was still a lot of volume up here. Kind of went sideways though, and then look at this little area down here. Okay, we're looking at very little aggressive selling. Okay, so we rotate back up into this structural element and we find more buying at a higher high. Now, albeit it's only a tick higher than this level here, but there's more buying volume up here. So we get price discovery to the upside. And then what happens up here? Okay, well, we don't have as much buying here. It's not so bad. Okay, but look at this area here. Okay, we have less buying up here. We're not even able to make a higher high. Okay, or an equal high at that in that case. So we find some sellers, and they hit the bid pretty hard. Okay, and that's the aggressive red dots that you see here, moving price down. Okay, so now the new valuation of this product is below this structural range. Okay, we come back up and test where we broke from. And there's a nice little cluster of buying up here, but it's just not sustainable. Come back down and we trade through that area, and now we are trending to the downside. Okay, now that's a small trend, but you can see it and you can start to understand these fractal levels on much higher time frames. Okay, so anyway, that's just some of the details that you're missing with aggregated data, because you cannot see really what occurred in some of these areas here. I mean, this little area here is where the order flow changed over. Okay? And the candlestick chart is really not telling us anything about that whatsoever. Okay? One of the setups we look for in the advanced order flow webinars is a return back to where they initiated the move. We get a beautiful one here, and then come back down and make a lower low here, and then continue to make lower lows. All right, so let me zoom in and I'll just show you the details here, because we're not aggregating any data whatsoever. Every single market event is recorded in Bookmap. So this is what these two elements are here. We have our historical best offer, which is the red line. Best bid is the green line. That's it. Okay, now zoom in a bit more here, and let's bring up the dot size. And here's what really occurred on that historical best bid and offer. Okay, these are the transactions. And you can see there's a lot of buying in here for this small little time frame. A green dot is an aggressive market buy. They crossed the spread and took liquidity off of the best offer. Okay, red dot is an aggressive sell. They hit the market sell button. Okay, now I'm going to zoom into this bigger dot here, and you're going to see how we record every single market event. Okay, and we can continue to zoom in here, and we're seeing trades within trades, and we're down at microsecond level here, so millions of seconds. We can look at billions of seconds, and we can show every single event that took place. Okay? That's just how Bookmap records the data. This is the environment we came from the HFT environment. But we don't usually trade at these levels, right? So this isn't really helpful for the rest of us unless you're trading algorithmically. So let's zoom back out and then note how Bookmap, although we have recorded every single event, we're going to visually aggregate this for you into a bigger dot, so you have an understanding of what occurred. Okay? And you'll see that some of these dots turn into like a both buying and selling, like this one over here, or this little one here is going to turn into a bigger one. There you go. And mostly buying here is a little sliver of selling. So you can see it here. This one maybe is a better example. There's 3/4 of this was, or more than that, was buying, and then a bit of selling as well. Okay, so it's just the overall shape. And if you want all of the numeric values, precise numeric values, you can use this data tip tool, hover over it, and you get the precise time, date, what was the liquidity here on the ask, and what was the volume. Okay, if you zoom in, you can split it all apart, and you still have all of the access here to every single market event. So this was one trade here for a volume of 60. Okay, my data counter over here, my trades counter and volume tell me exactly that as well. All right, so now those are just two elements on the chart. Okay, now let's get to the third element here on this chart in Bookmap, and let's take off the candlestick at this point, and let's put on the heat map. Okay, now the heat map is derived from the DOM, so let's go to the current market. Okay, here we are in the current market, and let's zoom in a bit here, and let's take a look at the DOM. Okay, here it is here. These columns over here is this one, the current order book, COB. And here's our price ladder here. Okay, and everything to the right of this vertical white line here, well, this is the live market. Okay, here's our current best bid and offer, and this is the last traded volume, this number. Here's our price ladder, and then here's our depth of market on the bid. These are traders lined up here to buy at specific price levels, and then they're up here to sell on the offer at specific price levels. Okay, now, what we do is we take areas of high liquidity, and in the current market window here with the best bid and offer, we turn it into a heat map. So areas of very high liquidity are going to be orange. You can see it up here, 605, 610 contracts up here, back to 605. So that's the highest in the book right now, currently. Okay. And then it goes to yellow, and then it goes to white, and then blue. And the scale is up here in the heat map. All right, so we take those numbers. It's transposed into transformed into a graphical representation, and then we take it though and we record it and plot it on the chart historically. Okay, so we note how at 74 there was some interest here to sell. And then see these striations in the heat map? Well, that's the adding and pulling of liquidity. Okay? When they add back in, it gets bright, just like right now, and then they pull, just like then, and then it's we see less liquidity. Now let's zoom into this, and I'll show you. Okay? We can use the hover or data tip tool again, and hover over these areas. Okay, liquidity was about 400 contracts, and it bumped up to almost 500. And then here it's almost 500 as well. I came back down to 433, back up to 493. Okay? It's the adding and pulling of liquidity, and this is what it looks like here in Bookmap. Okay? Now, what this allows us to do, though, when we look at it historically, is now we can use our DOM on much higher time frames. You don't have to be glued to the numeric values in the DOM. Okay, now you can start to just visually and graphically look for areas of high liquidity and how they're behaving. Note how they're behaving. This is where you start to put the context of the auction together with the transactions. Okay, not just the volume and transactions and reading that, but reading the auction. And it's very simple now because you can read it graphically. You don't have to be all caught up in these numeric values. The problem with I like looking at some of the numbers. The problem though is when they change, then we don't know what was there before. It's not recorded, and that's a problem because you really have to do a lot of mental work to remember those areas, how long they stayed there. Were there people front running it, or were they pulling? Were they pulling and adding higher? Okay, all of these questions can be very, very easily answered by just looking at the heat map here. Okay, we can start to identify individual players and actors and their behavior. We can understand that they're pulling from one area and adding to another. Let me find an example of that. And then I want to get to reading this and understanding it because and making a distinction between real liquidity that stays in the book and gets filled, and they have the intent to trade at those areas, compared to those that pull. Okay, and we can verify that, and we'll know very factually that information. Okay? Let me zoom into this area here, and let me see if we can find a good example of maybe pulling and adding higher. Okay. Not the greatest example there, but just a moment. All right, well, we'll come across one of individual actors, but let's get into absorption and exhaustion and real liquidity here. Here's real liquidity at this 2678 level. And why do I say that? Well, we know this is high liquidity. It's already in the book, right? Well, we have about 800 contracts here. And look at the transactions taking place right into that high liquidity. Okay? This is real liquidity. They mean to trade here at 78. There's no question about it. For those traders who say, well, it's all it's all fake liquidity anyway. Well, it's not, and here's why. Here they are. We know that larger players are getting filled here. Okay, they're absorbing. Okay, now and they basically absorbed this area here. Price kind of went sideways and went lower. Okay, the buyers came right back in though and charged up into these areas. And look again. Okay, they're starting to absorb again. Okay. So they're at this 79 level. Okay, pretty typical. Larger players every other point or every point. And then look at the buying up here in these little areas. Okay, well, since they're absorbing a lot of that buying pressure, we're not finding the buyers as much. and that's part of the reason. We look at them here. This is exhaustion. Okay, there's no transactions up here. Or I'm sorry, very few, 13 contracts traded. That was it up in this little area. Compared to just a tick below is almost 600, and then one tick below that is almost 3,000 contracts. So it's basically none, right? Compared to some of the other areas. And now we're starting to understand, well, we saw absorption on the way up. We saw real liquidity, real players getting filled. We're not finding buyers again up in these areas here. Okay, well, where can we go to if we start to exhaust out here? And if we start to exhaust out here, we're going to find sellers on the other side, and they're going to hit the bid. And where are they going to drive this down to? Well, the swings, some of these areas here, or where the buyers were supporting it earlier. And this is where they were. You can see it right here. You can see the sweep of the book higher up into this area where they absorbed at 78 that we just studied. Okay, so now we're really starting to understand a shift in this order flow. Okay, and this was the area we were looking at earlier with the candlesticks. And now we're starting to really understand the context of what's going on here. Okay, look at this nice cluster of selling down here as well, down at this area where there was very little selling previously. Okay, this is a shift in the order flow. Okay, we return back up to where we broke from. We don't find buyers. We rotate back down again. Little tricky area here because it kind of looks like it exhausts out, and we may find buyers in here, but we didn't. And instead, they hit the bid again. And look where we get a pullback right to where we broke from yet again. Here's another great setup. So you could have traded that once. Well, you could have even traded it probably here. This was a real nice one, real clear one. Look for targeting high liquidity down here. Okay, no problem there. We return back up and kind of go sideways here, but just don't find the buyers again. And the aggressor comes in on the sell side and hit it lower. Okay, now we're right back up to where we broke from here. Okay, at 74 and a half or so, maybe 75. How the iceberg looks? Sure, let's go over that, and then we got to wrap it up here and get to the next webinar. Let's turn on the iceberg detector. Okay, it's these numbers here. Okay, these values that you see here. Okay, so here's 20, here's 12, and what the green? This means that they are absorbing. You've hit a buying iceberg here. 14 contracts traded more than what was on the bid at that time, is what it means. Okay, and then the red numbers it's the opposite, just sellers instead. All right, so starting to place the iceberg detector within some of these ranges as well. Okay, a lot of times what you'll see, very typical, is come up into some of these areas here. Well, this isn't a bad example. Starting to come up into these areas of higher liquidity up here. And you'll start to find some icebergs, some large ones. Look at 298, or is it 208? Yeah, 208, okay, here, and then 211 here. So they're absorbing, and they're kind of front running some of this higher liquidity, but they're not showing that liquidity in the book. Okay, pretty typical. And that's another added element here in insight that you're getting, Roberto. All right, so just gone through some of the basics. Very briefly defined a book sweep. We'll do that maybe later this week again and go through some of the basics in the order flow. But if you have no more questions, then let's wrap it up, and we will see you. If you're already currently subscribing, we'll see you in the next webinar. Okay, all right, guys, thanks for coming. Bye-bye.